Have you ever pictured what might be found on the bottom of the ocean? There's so much we don't understand and have yet to discover. What creatures prosper? What habitat do they thrive in? What food might they consume? And how have we as humans influenced their habitat? Did you ever imagine you would find this?
The ethics of materials. It's basically nothing can be wasted. Everything is precious because every material has some kind of environmental consequence, in some cases social consequences, that we have to make ourselves aware of and pay attention to.
Most other industries are regulated. That is what brings their waste management into being and what sets its tone. Here we're doing it on a volunteer basis. Fishermen are individual businesses, and there are thousands of them. If you could get 2,000 or 3,000 individual businesses on a volunteer basis to bring all their waste to a common point for appropriate disposal, I think you've accomplished quite a thing.
Can you describe what waste behaviors were like when you first started fishing?
I can describe the behaviors we used to have. I don't like to, particularly. It's not a lot of fun to admit to yourself as much as anybody else that you used to throw stuff overboard. It's one of the classic problems with the ocean is that you're depending on a resource you can't see until you catch it. You're operating within an environment of conditions that you can't always appreciate what they are. The ocean is also vast, and there's such a freedom associated with it. Those things all add together to make it hard to know that you're doing damage if you happen not to be taking care of the debris that you're generating. There's more to what you're doing than merely dropping something overboard. That it has implications for the larger world, has implications for the animals that you're depending on, and that you've got a responsibility to take care of it.
In addition to entangled seals and seabirds, one of the things that we saw on and off was for instance, a large bundle of monofilament line and gill net with some floats attached, all tangled up, washed ashore with thousands of invertebrates entangled in it. So it had been on the bottom and somehow sort of got eventually rolled up on Sable Island. So it was filled with dead brittle stars and other marine invertebrates. And in one case, we found one with a couple of dead lobsters entangled in it. So certainly the entanglement problem with any kind of debris, fishing gear and otherwise, affects a wide range of marine organisms.
One of the primary fisheries around here is lobster. I'm sure that lobster prefer a pristine bottom. I can see a lobster bottom covered in bait box covers, pieces of rope, garbage bags, odds and ends. And really, I think that if you alter the environment, the marine environment to that extent, over time you're going to start to see changes in population, perhaps even changes in the lobster themselves.
So, lobster traps that don't make it up on our shoreline break down in the ocean. A single lobster trap can shed more than 1,000 shards of plastic as it corrodes. Research shows that 15% of marine litter washes up on our shorelines. So for this one lobster trap that we just found, 5 more are out there.
It's going to enter the actual meat that we harvest and eat and have eventually an effect on us. It's as if we were eating, by proxy, plastic ourselves.
This bait box is just washed up ashore, and it was likely thrown overboard, either intentionally or accidentally lost. And you can see that, unbeknownst to a lot of people, these bait boxes actually have a plastic liner on them. In the Maritimes, nearly 600,000 bait boxes are thrown overboard every year.
Really, one thing is too many. So we may say 600,000, and that gives that's really a good shock value number. But to me, the number one has just as much shock value, because what it indicates is that there is a misunderstanding, perhaps. There may be an issue of people just not caring about it, but I think whether it's 1 or 600,000, it tells us that there's a problem that needs to be dealt with. It's cheaper in the short term for fishermen to throw it overboard, because then there's no, you don't have to store it, you don't have to haul it, you don't have to dispose of it. The long-term ramifications, though, are that it's incredibly expensive, because we're looking at possibly destroying an entire way of life.
The fishing industry has served as the cultural and economic backbone of Nova Scotia for generations. What would it mean to lose something like that? Beach sweep participants found that up to 95% of litter washed up on Nova Scotia shorelines can be attributed to fishing-related activities. With most fishing gear and packaging now made of plastic, this is concerning. Every bit of plastic that has ever been produced still exists today. As plastic breaks down into smaller pieces, it can be mistaken as food, and poisons accumulate in ocean wildlife. This lowers the marketability of harvested seafood, reduces productivity, and can also end up on our dinner tables. While that's a reality, some fishers are taking a stand. They are stepping up to protect the health of the ocean and the species they rely on.
So we're doing what we can to improve the environment that we live in, because it's supported us for generations. We hope it will support us for more generations to come in a variety of ways. And I commend the various organizations that have come together today, and hopefully people will become much more in tune with cleaning up the environment around us, and land and sea can work together as they have for many years to provide us with a livelihood and an environment that we enjoy and that future generations can enjoy as well.
One time it used to be throw it there and somebody will look after it, you know, and on the wharf too, but now most of the guys pick their own garbage up and put it where it belongs. Look after it, put it in its proper place. You shouldn't have no problem with it blowing overboard. I mean, like I said, we have places aboard the boat to put this stuff, and why not use it? That's all you have to do is put it in them places once, and it's looked after.
I would say probably a great example of a success story for us is a harbor in Lunenburg County. When we first visited the harbor, we found 2 garbage bins, and they were garbage at the time, labeled garbage. And when we started to look at them, we found that a lot of the stuff that was in those bins was actually recyclable. And it required developing 2 signs, which was a matter of a half an hour of staff time, arranging to get a green bin on site, and a couple of meetings. And within, probably a half a day to a day of staff time, we now see that harbor separating their waste. We see half of it being compost or recycled, which is what we should be seeing. So we're seeing the waste separation, we're seeing the buy-in, and I think really it's sending a message to the other harbors in the area that this is not that big of a deal.
We put in dumpsters and the fishermen are using those. They're not just throwing all their garbage around like it used to be, and definitely it's a better environment, I think, not just at this wharf, but also at the other wharves around the area, because I talked to the port managers and it seems like it's a lot cleaner than it was years ago.
If it's daytime, we see garbage, we'll just stop, get the calf and throw it aboard the boat and put it in their garbage bag and bring it home with us. That's, and I think a few boats do that too. I'm not the only one who does that. We're not the only ones who do that. There's quite a few boats do that.
My son is a diver, and he will tell you that the water's way cleaner now than what it was when he started diving.
Garbage in the ocean affects us two ways. It affects the health of the fishing stock. It affects what they eat, so that's ingested in them and it passes on to the consumer. It also affects the marketability of our product. We have to make sure that we have a sustainable future in industry, and we have to make sure that everyone knows that we bring our garbage ashore and we are environmentally friendly.
You wouldn't see a farmer throwing his empty fertilizer bags in his potato field.
Why I've changed mostly is in kind of my grandchildren. They changed me.
Not often you see children role models to a parent.
Yeah. Everybody should be doing their part with the garbage. Fishermen no different.
There's always the question of, are fishermen still throwing garbage overboard? I'm sure some are. If they saw the videos that I saw about the plastic and what it does to the fish, geez, you'd think they'd stop.
We've seen some wonderful examples of harbors taking ownership of it. I think in the industry itself, we see all kinds of recognition of the issue, but I'm not convinced that we've come a long way in this industry. And I use a great example. 20 years ago, I was talking about this. 20 years later, I'm talking about this.
Waste management within the fishing industry could be handled better. There could be waste receptacles at all harbors, not just the larger ones. They could all have composting facilities, they could all have recycling facilities, and more awareness and education among each of the harbors to make fishermen aware of how important it is for them to bring their waste ashore. It's not just an unsightly mess washing up onto the beaches. It has real harm and consequences on the fishing industry and the health of the oceans in general.
We've got to reduce, we've got to reuse material where we can, we've got to be more careful. And us more than a lot of people, because we depend so very clearly on a good, healthy, clean environment. We need the ocean to be clean, for it to be productive, for it to produce the fish that gives us a living. We have to do our part to take care of it.
In the last year, over 3,000 kilograms of fishing waste has been recycled and composted by fishing harbors in Nova Scotia. 300 fishers have pledged to return their waste ashore, protecting 70,000 hectares of ocean habitat. With so much at stake, we know that this is just the start of something bigger.
Garbage, we bring it back.
Set in stone, and